All right, hello, ABL and fans of the ABL. I am Alan of the Rockies. I've got Tyler, who we all know, and new face to the pods. Not super new to the league, but we've got Royals, Brenden. Brenden, first, thanks for both of you guys. Thanks for taking the time on a work night. You guys have like real jobs and stuff, and it is a work night for you guys. Brenden on the East Coast, it's already like midnight over there, I think. So, thanks for taking the time to talk some ABL. How you guys doing? First and foremost, Brenden, how you doing?
I'm good. Excited to be here, Alan. It's been a long time coming, like you said, but I couldn't, due to popular demand on the league, vote over there and the pressure coming off the last pod, I couldn't turn this one down.
I felt like you were going to. I had to actually tell you nobody's holding a metaphorical gun to your head, and then you were finally in because I sensed some resistance, but we worked through it.
I debated back and forth, but after the Giants kicked the Vikings ass the other night, I couldn't not show up here and chat with my buddy Tyler on the pod. So here I am.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I was probably the most vocal in the football thread. I was the one saying, "Oh, there's no way. It's the Giants. It's Daniel Jones. Come on, you're going to compare him to the great Kirk Cousins?" And, well, I mean, thankfully, I'm not a fan of either team. I'm happy to eat my words, but it wasn't as painful for me as it was for maybe a Minnesotan.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Rough.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, we could just bypass that. Let's jump into. Of course, if it's not obvious, if I didn't say already, we've got two guys that are owners of AL Central teams in the ABL heading into year 3. Brenden, when exactly did you come into the Royals? Was it off season?
Yeah, it was off season. It was off season, and even after off season trading opened, I think it was like mid-October. So I lost out of the first rush of trades too there at the end, but made the most of it last year.
And you were brought in by Dodger Joe, correct?
Yeah. I don't like to bring that up after the fact, but he was my reference. So
thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks a lot. Because I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but we've seen already what a legit owner can come in and do with some of these dead teams, and it seemed like you really immediately kind of took the Royals and started transforming them into quite a bit different than they looked throughout the course of year 1. They weren't a bad team, but the owner, I mean, obviously he wasn't very active. He ended up being gone at the end of the year, but this team looks a hell of a lot different now than it did when you took it over. I don't want to hit the Royals first because I want to save the Royals. I'll probably go in like reverse order and leave the two of you guys for last. Tony is asking, are you drinking a White Claw, Brenden?
So I ran out of bourbon, so I'm drinking. It is a hard seltzer, but it's a Corona hard seltzer. These are my new favorite, my new go-to. So
Corona seltzer. All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Can't say I've heard of it, but Tyler, is that also hard seltzer in your water bottle?
No, it is not. I have pretty much worked 4.5 days straight, and so I am running on very low energy right now. So I am just drinking water because if I drank a beer right now, I'd probably fall asleep before the end of the pod. So
and still showing up to do the pod, man. I do got
these though. Some of my favorite candies to keep me awake. That's the plan.
Was it the sour Skittles?
Yeah.
It looked like we had like a blurred out product placement when you held it up. We don't have the advertising dollars from Skittles, so we can't show that on the pod, right? Yeah. All right. Without further ado,
I was trying to get Tyler started up about. I was trying to get Tyler started up about an hour ago, and he's like, I have something called kids. Like, that sounds terrible. Come on.
Everybody's got these things called kids. Yeah, I don't quite understand myself, but let's. I want to do. We'll start with Tyler. What are your I'm sure we all did probably about the same amount of give or take research for this thing. So what are your initial thoughts on the Central as a whole before we get into the individual teams and breaking them down? Like what do you think of your division as it sits right now?
Yeah, I think we're outside of, I think as we all can kind of see with Harry's team, I think outside of Harry, I think everyone has the capability of being good this year. I think good is kind of relative to each team, but I actually thought it was, I guess, honestly, besides my team, I felt like it actually looks somewhat similar to how it looked at what I felt like the beginning of last year, with the exception of potentially Brenden being in a better position, I feel like, than he certainly was beginning of last year. So I think it looks, kind of similar. There's a couple of teams that I have that I feel like could be very, very strong. And then just some kind of maybe middle of the pack fighting for the playoffs after that. So that would kind of be my assumption in terms of how we would finish, but I know a lot of it obviously depends on the other divisions as well. So that's kind of how I feel.
I tend to agree, especially with the Harry comment. Like, I don't think it would be any surprise, to him or anybody else to see that the White Sox are probably, at least as we do it today, projected to finish in the bottom half of the division. Try to be nice to him and say bottom half, but I kind of echo this. It looks like it's like 4 teams that could just beat the shit out of each other all year, and anybody could end up on top. And then the White Sox, who are set up to, maybe dominate starting in 25 or 26 for the next several years. But I'm right there with you. Brenden, what did you think of your first no, not your first full year. You had a full year last year, but what do you think now with a year of ABL under your feet and the rest of the division?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely a whole heck of a lot more excited going into this one than last year. This was my first 30-team league, so I definitely had a lot of lessons learned. Depth is key, and that's kind of been my strategy, as you'll see as you dig into my team right now. But just the overall division, I think it's going to be competitive up and down the board here. I think the White Sox are a bit of an exception, maybe a year or two away. But the one thing that caught my eye the most, and I don't know where you want to start, was knowing that both Detroit and White Sox kind of blew it up last year. After digging in especially the past few hours doing some prep for this, I was really surprised of the actual MLB roster that the Tigers have put together right now, plus the farm system that they have waiting in the wings. So that was kind of the thing that probably caught my eye the most. That I'm always looking at rosters. I'm an addict. I'm on this thing every day, but I hadn't quite really acknowledged what's going on in Detroit.
I think that's a good place to start. I was a little surprised actually myself at what I ended up grading the Tigers, because John he's on the Discord and stuff. He's one of the more quiet guys, but he's made some sneaky moves, and he was one of those teams that had in year one we had no in-season cap in year one. Yeah. And he was one of the teams that really went for it in that year one and had, I wouldn't say an astronomical salary, but north of 400, I think.
I mean, he won the AL, right?
Yeah. Duke beat him by 5 points, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah,
it was really
the Tigers very nearly were year one champions. But it doesn't seem that he suffered as much as you might think a team would have for, going. You look at the Mariners, for example, in the last one we did, and maybe that was due to some of the contracts that Seth gave, but he kind of went that same direction in year one, and his team looks quite a bit different now than the Tigers. But Brenden, Tigers lineup, Tigers hitting, we'll say. It doesn't have to be just the lineup, but Tigers hitting. What did you think? What did you grade Tiger hitting?
All right, so kind of just let's lay the groundwork here. This scoring. I know we talked a little bit offline, but
sure.
I kind of took a snapshot of the teams as they exist today, right? So as if the season started tomorrow, giving them a grade on where I think they would be, really relative with the other 4 teams, because that's what I dug into for the past few hours. I like their hitting. Like I said, I was surprised. There's not a lot of depth right now. So just real quick, just a couple things I did. I think we all know the Fantrax projections are kind of crap, right? But I did do a quick sum of who I thought would be the starting hitters and starting pitchers across the board, and the current projections for them. So and I also kind of gave a little credit to teams that had a full squad. You can see right here, he's missing a left fielder right off the bat. So if you could field the full squad, I kind of had a little bump up there. But I thought he, the hitting right now is looking like a B minus, a C plus B minus to me. That's kind of where I had him.
Tyler, I don't want to. Yeah, I'm going to let you guys go, and then I will
Sure.
give mine. I don't want to interject too much.
Sure. Yeah, I actually had him at a B plus. I actually like the hitting a little bit more even. And the reason I said that, well, there were two reasons. One, I think to Brendan's point, I also favored a little bit more teams that I felt had full or pretty much full rosters. I think that going into the auction, knowing that you have a full team, I think, or at least a full starting roster, I think is an added bonus. But then there's just a couple of guys I feel like on his team who you pretty much know what you're going to get from them for the most part. And so even though, yes, Fantrax projections, are kind of shit sometimes, I looked at it and I said, would I be surprised if any of the guys in his current starting lineup scored where they did? No, I really wouldn't be. Some of them I think they're actually too low. So I really liked it for that. And I'm also a huge sucker for position eligibility. And he has that in spades from multiple guys. So I think that's just such a huge advantage. So I think I put him at a B plus for hitting. I think he's in a really good spot.
So we're all pretty much right there. I gave him B plus for a lot of the same reasons. I'm a big Morel fan. He's like a tweak or two away from being, I don't want to say a superstar, but like a star. And he's got him for $1, second, third, short, center fields. Gonna get probably everyday ABs in that Cub lineup. Really, the only notable hole right now is left field, and the rest of it looks. He did, not that it matters, but he did just lose Lewis Brinson to a Japanese team, but I don't think that's gonna sting John too much. How do you get into the fact that he might have to, we're looking at it as it looks today. He is at $205 and he's got some inflation coming, but the team is pretty well rounded out. So is the left field hole going to be enough to stop this offense? It's not like it's going to be just a zero all year. I like it for a lot of the same reasons you guys. A lot of positional eligibility, a lot of guys that are going to be getting ABs. He doesn't have a whole lot of question marks yet, just from the lineup that we're looking at. So yeah, I put him firmly in that B plus range for hitting. I was surprised at how good it was.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, maybe the only reason why I kept him at a B minus instead of a B or B plus is I'm looking at the bench, and I don't see much there. And obviously I can get into the kind of projection part of it post auction. Yeah. And we can talk about that when we talk about how many spots he might have and how much money he'll have. The multi-position eligibility can cover up for some injuries or things that may pop up. Certainly needs to add a little more depth though.
But with the money too, right? He, like you mentioned, Alan, it's not like he's not going to have any money, but he's not going to have necessarily a ton to work within the options or in the auction. So finding a left fielder who's going to produce, even regular at bats may be tough. And if he goes and really spends, most of his budget on that, where does his bench look? What does his bench look like? And same thing with pitching too, from a depth perspective. Obviously, we'll get to pitching in a second, but there's some things that he could look at there too. So I think that I was actually looking, because I didn't the first time, but at contracts to see, well, is he maybe waiting to drop someone or something like that? And I don't really think he is, unless he's thinking about Kirk. Maybe. I would highly doubt that, because Kirk's had a really good value, I feel like, at 12, but
maybe he drops. Oh no, I was going to say maybe he drops Xander, but Xander's through the year, so he's
not dropping Xander. I've been talking to him about a potential trade, and he's not coming cheap. So he has no intention of dropping him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some.
I do want to note that John did something interesting that I really like. That I don't think, off the top of my head, I can't think of another ABL team that has the entire catcher battery for a team. He's got Kirk and Danny Jansen at 18 combined dollars. Danny Jansen, a little bit underrated. I read a tweet today that I don't remember all of the stats, but it was like 4 of these kind of just basic hard hit stats, like various percentage stat, and like the last guy in the group, there was like 6 or 7 of them that had all done these combo of 4 things for 250 ABs, whatever. The last one was Danny Jansen. Just kind of stuck out because you're talking about guys like Machado and man, I wish I could remember what it was off the top of my head, but serious hitters, you know, and then Danny Jansen. So there's a little bit there. It's nice to have him, you know, when Kirk is not going to be in there. Moreno's gone. That probably is the battery for the year. So not a bad combo to have. I don't think any other ABL teams have a full catcher combo like that where they can reliably just get ABs like that every single day from one team. Yeah. Nice way to go. So yeah, B minus, B plus, we're all right there for John. Tyler started off with the Tiger pitching.
Sure. So I gave him a grade of C plus, and I like, obviously, Cortez is obviously a great guy, especially for his price. Pablo, you know, again, obviously great pitcher. Miami should be good this year, so he obviously will hopefully get some points there. But then after that, to me it was just a bunch of question marks. Guys who certainly could get a bunch of points, like a Jason Adam, who's projected to get 312 points, which is, I think, is crazy to me. I guess I didn't realize he was being considered that heavily for a late inning role for them this year. So that kind of surprised me a little bit. But then other than that, he's just got a bunch of like 100, 200 point guys. I also looked at a lot of these guys as guys he could potentially drop for, you know, just to try and find some salary room. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really necessarily love anyone on his bench. I mean, you know, maybe if Anderson or Keuchel get a decent job somewhere and find a rotation spot, I mean, maybe he finds some more starts there, but having Drew Smyly as your number 3, I don't really love. So that's why I'm a little nervous, because if he's going to spend money somewhere, he's either got to do it left field or he's got to do it pitching. And it's choosing between one or the other. He's going to lose something somewhere. So that's gonna make it, I think, tough for him without moving a piece somewhere or the other.
Yeah, no, I'm spot on. I said C plus. Exactly what you said. I mean, Spencer Turnbull, what is he going to offer this year too? I was trying to dig through everyone he has on his bench. Who's even going to be on an MLB roster? I think he's got to move 5 or 6 of those guys just to clear roster spaces. And you're talking about trying to save some money, but look at those salaries. Where's it going to come from?
That's the hard part too. Kind of like you said, or like you're saying, I'm sure, is the $1. Even if you drop Dallas Keuchel, well, then you have to find another $1 guy in the auction who's going to be worth something. And maybe you do, right? Like that, I guess, could be a strategy. But the assumption is you're not going to be able to find a ton of $1 guys who are going to produce 200.
Not in a 30-team league. I mean, not like a league like ABL. Everybody's going to need, if there's a $1 guy out there that's going to. And that's kind of the thing with the slow auction. It's like you can feel like, so I'll out myself right here. I think it was the A's. They signed Drew Ruchinski. He was playing in either Japan or Korea. He's like he's a former guy over here, but he was playing Japan to Korea. And I think Roster Resource has him as either the 4 or 5 starter. Mm-hmm. And, that's a name that, who the hell is Drew Ruchinski? But in a 30-team league, if a guy's supposed to be a 4 or 5 starter, you bet your ass. But in a slow auction, as soon as he goes up, everybody's going to have 12 hours to just look him up real quick. And it's like, oh, shit, yeah, the A signed him. Yep. And so, you don't really have any secrets in a slow auction. You can try, but even guys like that, the vultures are going to be circling. So, yeah, that's going to be tough. And to tie that in, I put C+, maybe with the potential for a B-, just because those top 2 are so nice. And if Fantrax is right about Jason Adam, whatever that 38 combined save holds, and the Rays, again, like Tyler said, they don't strike me as a team that commits this early to this is going to be our 8th or 9th inning guy. So I don't know how Trax thinks that they can do that. It's maybe a bit of an optimistic outcome for Jason Adam, but even if he does hit that, it's very questionable afterwards. I have faith in John as an owner, but like we said, I just don't think stuff is going to be out there for as much money as he's likely to have. Now, everything could change by tomorrow. Him and Brenden could get together after the pod, and there goes Xander or something, and he frees up about $40. So who knows? But yeah, I gave him C+, maybe up to a B- if he acquires somebody or everything goes right. But probably more in that C+ range for the pitching.
Yeah, I put him. I was just going to add. I put a little note for most of the teams we were looking at, and one of the notes I had for him was that I feel like he's a top trade partner potentially, just because of the position he's in. Whereas if he doesn't hit the auction right and kind of get lucky in a sense, he could have some opportunities to trade some of his bigger names for either more pieces or for younger pieces or whatever it might be. So that'll be interesting to see what he ends up doing there too.
Well, because the spot he's in right now, as we move on to the farm, I'll just say I gave the Tigers an A for his farm. And yes, that would be, you deal from your strength, right? But for John right now, that would be difficult to do without also sending away salary. So he can't really use that farm as the leverage for his deals right now, because he also is in a sticky financial spot. But I did give him an A for his farm, and that's not something an A is not something I want to hand out often. I also gave the White Sox an A for their farm. You guys are in a division with some serious farm systems and some serious right now talent too. The AL Central is tough. I think it's going to be very tough outside of the White Sox, but getting ahead of myself. You're looking at Pete Crow Armstrong, James Wood, even Christian Robinson could still eventually be something. $13, meh. But Brian Rocchio, Eddie's Leonard. I mean, these guys just on the hitting side. Curtis Mead, didn't even mention Curtis Mead. A lot of really close guys for one. Maybe not 23 close, but close enough that they're going to help him sooner or later. And that's without getting into the pitchers. Some really nice looking pitchers. Tanner Bibby. I don't know how to pronounce Fat.
Gavin Stone.
Gavin Stone looks great. Even Matt Sauer, I kind of like as he's not a top 100 or anything, but he's a sneaky, good-looking pitching prospect for the Yankees. I mean, this is a very, very good farm. It's a shame right now he can't leverage it into deals without giving money away, because this is where you'd want to deal from. Brenden.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna jump in there.
Are you there with me?
This is a clear A. I mentioned before to you guys before the broadcast started, but just for a reference point, I loaded all these rosters into the Prospects Live database just so we could see where they were at, and he's got 17 top 500 prospects according to that list. And I kind of gave it a scoring kind of in reverse order, number 1, 500 points and so on. He's head and shoulders above everyone. And he's even got almost a 500-point lead on the White Sox, who has 19 prospects in the top 500. Just looking at his list, the Tigers have 9 prospects inside the top 78 of Prospects Live top 500. Now I know the list hasn't been updated since October, so I know there's going to be some movement there for sure. But I was blown away by what he's working with there, and if he wants to make some mid-season moves, let's see how he starts the season. But he could be a threat in the second half if he wanted to make that sort of move.
Yeah, I had an A as well. Across the board, it's hard. I mean, hard not to. You guys pretty much said everything. And he's still got 4 spots to fill too. He's got pick 1-4, so he's probably going to have another top 100 guy coming in, as well. So, just what you just said, Alan, both of you said it from a trade perspective. That's where I think it'll be really interesting, because John has, even though he is a little more quiet in the Discord, he is definitely not active when it comes to trading and stuff like that. He is more than willing to make the trades he needs. So it'll be really interesting to see which way he goes based on the auction. And farm was an easy A for sure.
John knows what he's doing.
Yes, he does.
I am in the Golden Sombrero. I think there's a few ABL guys in that, but John took over a team in that as well. Yeah, Brendan's in that. And John's in an interesting spot in that league right now as the auction goes on. But like even a non-ABL league with a little bit different rules and stuff, it's very clear that John knows what he's doing as a fantasy owner. If the Tigers weren't evidence of that, like he's a smart fantasy owner. Potential Tigers, just real quick, I gave him a B-. He is, as we've discussed, he's in a tough spot money wise, but like I just said, I have faith that he'll be able to figure it out. So I think B-. You could probably just as easily say B+ for the Tigers if things break right. But the lack of pitching depth and maybe that lack of bench depth, that maybe starts to get to him without having a lot of money to add guys, I think.
Yeah, I literally put a B+, and that was strictly based on what you just said, is the potential. If everything, it was basically my ratings for these were if everything goes right, what does this team look like? And I put a B+ because as I said before, there's gonna be a weak spot somewhere. And so, is he going to be able to either move money around, pre-auction? Probably not. Or is it going to be a post-auction thing? So, we open it up to 360. He can make some moves with his prospects, that kind of stuff. So I said B+ for potential.
So I looked at potential two ways. Initially, I was just talking about post-auction. What is this team going to look like? John's got 30 rostered players right now, if you include the two that he has on the IL spots. So he's got to cut at least 4. I identified maybe 5 or 6 that were like easy cuts. But even if he did that, he's looking at one open spot with $12 available in the auction. So unless he's making a move here before the auction, he's not going to have a lot of cash to play with because all his big money guys right here are still under contract. So if you're just looking at post-auction, I said C+, maybe a B-. If we want to expand the potential into leveraging your farm system, I certainly think with Tyler, you could get up to a B+ for sure. It just depends on who does he want to move, how much does he want to give up, and is he actually going to be in the race this year?
Yeah, that's interesting. He really is going to be in a tight spot with the money. Yeah, one spot for $12. You said, Brenden?
That was just my rough estimate. There's other guys he could cut, but didn't know if he would want to. But
interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, that's the Tigers. We all seem to pretty much be in lockstep on the three of us, our opinions on the Tigers anyway.
Let's little different from the first spot, I would say.
Yeah.
80s for everyone. I told Tony I'm giving everyone 80s.
Let's go to Cleveland, Mark. I refuse to call them the Guardians because I just don't like the name. It's not Mark's fault, but I'll just call them the Cleveland Marks. My opinion on Mark's hitting is kind of about where I had Cleveland's. It's kind of deeper than I expected when I went in to look at it. He's got a little bit more bench depth. A couple of guys that don't have a home right now. I don't know that Billy Hamilton will find a home, but missing. No, he's not missing a catcher. He's got a couple catchers, so he's not really missing anything. So he's got a full lineup. I gave Cleveland a B+ hitting. He's got every spot filled. He doesn't have a ton of positional flexibility. He's got quite a few single position guys, but overall, when you can pretty much fill out a whole lineup comfortably on opening day without making any moves, that puts you ahead of a lot of guys right now. So I felt pretty comfortable giving Mark a B+.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I gave him a B as well. He made some recent trades to really beef up his offense. It was looking pretty light. Then he made, I think he traded for Renfroe, Nimmo, and Will Myers. So after Will Myers signing in Cincy, I think he's high on him having a bit of a rebound season there. Game of B. I do know that he will be cutting one of his starters. I'm not going to say exactly who, so that's going to set him back a little from a starting position perspective. But Mark is a savvy owner, and he's looking pretty good here from a starting offense perspective.
I think he's savvy enough that he's probably not keeping $26 Yoan Moncada. That's going to be my guess. I don't know that, but Mark knows what he's doing. He knows. Well, I mean, I'm a Moncada. I like Moncada, but $26. Mark knows better than that.
I mean, between the three guys he can cut, I'm pretty sure we all know who it's going to be. So
all right. Where is he? He's got to be on here. Mark, comment if you're watching. If he's not watching,
we got six guys watching. Mark's got to be.
Well, I think to that point though, the one thing that I wanted to bring up before talking about Mark is he's sitting at 35 guys right now on his roster. So like that is, and he does have like plenty of guys to cut, especially when it comes to the pitching side of things. But like I just looked at his roster and I kept scrolling down and I was like, holy, how does he have all these guys? Yeah. And then I looked at he's got 35 guys. So for me, I'm similar to you guys. I gave his hitting an A- actually, even knowing he was probably going to have to cut someone somewhere. I didn't know exactly where that was going to be, or if he's going to trade, potentially try to move some salary. But yeah, assuming even getting rid of Moncada, supposedly, I love the lineup that he has. I love the guys where he has them. I think every single one of them should get, playing time, full time at bats, as long as they don't get injured. And then even on the bench, you're assuming Odor is going to get signed somewhere. Peterson's obviously a great bench bat to have. So it was an A- for me because I think he'll be good there. And once he figures out the money piece, he'll have, maybe a little bit of room in the auction to work with. I think it's interesting though, because Mark was very adamant last year. I remember in chat about saying how he was not going to cut his guys until the very last day, because he did not want to give anything away about his strategy or who was going to be in the pool.
Well, I might have some inside info to share, because when I was looking at his 35 team player roster here, and I was trying to do projections for the auction, I just gave up and I straight up DM'd him. I'm like, Mark, what's your current projection here of roster spots and available money for the auction? With his current thinking, he said he's going to have 5 spots and $26 to spend.
Okay. So that's it. It puts him in a pretty decent spot then. And he doesn't really need, at least from a hitting perspective, doesn't need big names by any means. So yeah, that'll put him in a decent spot.
Go ahead and carry us into the pitching too, Tyler.
Yeah, so I gave him I put A- for pitching, but then I also put a question mark next to it because I had no clue what he's going to do from a player perspective. The first 3 names he's got there, they're all 3 are under contract, even though Gray's only this year. But great options. Diaz, even though at 17, will be 19, still if you get 400 points out of a reliever, that's pretty ridiculous. And he's got Presley too. Stroman could have a pretty good year. Caprillion is, fine at $3, soon to be $5. So he's got plenty of options. Pivetta down there too. So he's got lots of options. I gave him an A- with a question mark, depending on who he cuts.
I gave him an A- on the spot too, but there are some questions, Mark. I chat with Mark regularly just because of our division rivalry here. He's super concerned about Caprillion. Apparently there's rumors he's not going to be ready for the start of the season with his shoulder or whatever's going on there. Of course, he's carrying a $10 Mike Minor. Who knows if he's going to get signed this year. I'm praying he doesn't retire, so he's got to sit with that contract for a little bit longer. He's stacked. He's absolutely stacked. Alcantara, Webb, Gray is your number 3, who I think is going to have a big year, and I know there's a lot of sites out there that are projecting him to really step forward this year. Stroman as your 4. He's got 3 closers too. So, this is a solid stat.
Yeah, I don't think you guys really said anything that I need to add to. I gave him B+, A- as well on the pitching, just on the strength of having 3-4 really solid starters that are projected probably to get you 30+ starts each, assuming health, and then 2 legit closers to go along with it. Puts him ahead of most staffs in ABL. And I'm not trying to make these grades like relative to everyone else in the ABL, because I'm not looking at every team when I do it, but just looking at it on its face, it is at least a B+ with a potential A- whatever rotation. That's very good rotation. Mark's farm, if it was this time last year, it would have been a lot different, I think, or maybe a couple months before. But right now, I'm giving Mark's farm a C. I was not thrilled with Mark's farm. He literally has not a single minor league pitcher, which I found very odd and didn't realize until I actually looked at it. He may be the only guy that's rocking nobody on the pitching side of the minors. And he's got some interesting names on the hitting side, but not enough to get me excited enough to give it any more than pretty much a league average. Greg Jones is good. He's starting to get a little old for a prospect. He's got names that like have like what 2 to 3 to maybe 350 like range on most. I know Ronnie Mauricio's had some hype. Wes Kath, not the Wysock, that I would go for right now. I know Basalo is, but very young. He's supposed to have some pop, but very young. I gave it a solid C.
Yeah, I gave him a C minus. It was going to be worse. So running the prospect live, projections or review of the roster. He's got 12 guys in the top 500, believe it or not.
Yeah. Okay.
But only one of them is below the rank of 249, and that's Ronnie. Ronnie's coming in at 148. So even with 12 guys in the top 500, he was easily last of the 5 of us in the division as far as like total prospect score. So I was even going to go lower than a C minus, but I know Mark, he knows his prospects, and I guarantee the next update on certain lists like this, a bunch of these guys that he picked up off the waiver wire that nobody heard about before he claimed are going to be rising the ranks.
Yeah, I actually did go a little lower. I even went with a D plus, but I did that almost for the exact same reason you just gave. In that it's kind of a D plus, but knowing that it will, when the new lists start to come out in the next month or two, knowing that will probably go up, and especially with what I'm sure I will end up reading about many of his prospects, because as you said, Mark is very good on the prospect side of things. I give him a lot of credit for that. So I just went for most of the prospects I looked at for our teams. I basically just went down the list and said, who do I recognize and who do I know some stuff about? And that's what I kind of based it off of. And so I did not know many, and what I did know, I didn't love. So that's why I did the D plus. But yeah, I would not be surprised if that's up in the upper C's, low B's by the time the new lists come out for sure.
Exact same thing with me. I looked at his team and I'm like, damn, this is why like the ABL is head and shoulders above everyone else, because I'm looking at these names and I'm like, I thought I knew my stuff. That's why I had to go to Prospect Live and actually upload this roster, and I was surprised how many hits he actually had, but on the back end.
Crazy.
He's also got 2 picks in the top 15 as well. We didn't even mention that, but knowing Mark, they're going to be solid enough picks to bump that up a little bit.
So are we skipping over potential or what?
Oh, no. Oh. Go ahead.
Potential is Mark's gonna, crash and fail miserably this year. So I'm projecting epic injuries to all his stars. Alcantara is out for the year with Tommy John. Look, even with 5 spots and $26, $5 a spot is not going to be a lot in this auction, but you'll get some good backups. His team's solid. It's going to be an A minus team.
Yeah, I gave him an A. I think he could very easily, and well, I shouldn't say he can be. He will be very easily in contention this year, not only for the division but in the AL. Especially, it'll be interesting. I'm very intrigued to see what Mark will do when he doesn't necessarily have all the picks and all the prospects that he's had, because that's how he built so much of his team, right? And so I'm interested to see what a year, at least without not as many, does for Mark, and if he tries a different strategy or if he just kind of rides it out. I'll be interested to see. But yeah, I gave him an A for potential.
I gave him a B plus, but I don't really need to add anything to what you guys said. But I do want to give a tip of the cap to Mark, because he did it the way that, he showed everybody that you can go from literally a 1-win team. And if you play your cards right, he dumped early when he saw it wasn't going to happen, and he acquired an elite farm, and then he took that farm and he used it to turn a 1-win team into a playoff team the very next year. And now, we're rating him a B plus, A, fighting for the division. Obviously, like Mark, that prospect knowledge worked. He did. He hit on some guys that then shot up some lists, and he was able to parlay that into big league pieces. And we see the fruits of that labor, at least in being a playoff team in year one and a legit shot in year two. So, yeah, tip of the cap to Mark, from one win, literally, in year one to playoffs in year two.
And for what it's worth, too, I was going to say, like, how he did it realistically should never be able to happen in ABL again because of the minimums, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see, because he was able to turn it around in a year because he was able to stockpile so much. It'll be interesting to see if any other team can replicate something like that with the new minimum rules.
That is a good point. Yeah, that is a good point. Okay, let's go to the Sox. Let's go to the Sox.
This will be quick.
This should be quick. I like we said earlier, it's not going to come as a surprise to anybody, like, what this team looks like. I gave the Sox an F to a D- in hitting. I mean, obviously there's just nothing there. He's starting he's got a catcher in his utility spot right now. Not that this stuff matters right now, but there's just nobody there. Brad Miller, Kyle Garlick, he's in the minors. He's got guys with minors flags. He's got guys, not on a team, and Martin Maldonado, who's going to be $5 and 37 years old. So yeah, I gave him an F to D-. If he can, he's got a lot of money. Maybe he puts together a D-, D-worthy lineup. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Brenden, go ahead.
Yeah, look, we can do hitting and pitching together. It's an F across the board. There's nothing there. And speaking from experience, I blew up my team before last year's auction. I think I went in there with maybe 5 guys under contract for the auction. It's not easy to put together a team from scratch in the auction, especially. It's going to get progressively worse each auction from here on out, as prices continue to rise. So, it's going to be tough to fill out this roster.
Yeah, I think I gave him a D-, simply because in my rankings, an F meant you literally didn't have anyone. So I gave him a D- with possible potential.
Does he have anyone? Who does he have? Like, he might have a warm body there, but come on, who does he got?
I think it'll be, to both of your guys' point, I think it'll be very interesting to see, how he approaches the draft and stuff like that. Again, the minimums are going to play a huge part in this. So my assumption would be between the Mets, that there's going to be teams who are going to be, which is another kind of interesting concept in the draft. But I think those teams are going to be the ones who are going to be actually bidding maybe higher and are willing to pay higher prices because they know they have to meet minimums. So they're going to want to find guys who are going to guarantee them points. Because realistically, my assumption is, as you said earlier, Alan, is that Harry's not playing for this year. So him going into the auction and buying a bunch of guys that could help him win this year kind of goes against that logic. So my thought is that they're going to go try to get the big names, the stars, that they can eventually trade away to contenders for other pieces. So I don't know. It's just a thought I had while I was going through Harry's roster. It's very interesting. But yeah, D- hitting, D- pitching for me too.
That's what I did with Cole last year. I signed Cole for like $54 just because I had so much cash. And, I think I flipped him for like 3 firsts at the deadline.
Yep.
I also gave him a D- for pitching. I mean, you could probably call it an F, honestly, but he does have the money that he's going to do something to make it a D-. But I mean, there's nobody there. I don't even know who Christopher Sanchez is. Brandon Bialik, Dylan Cole. He's got Yanni Chirinos. I mean, he's somebody that's been good in a game before. Anthony Bender. It's a lot of really nothing now. When you get into the Sox farm, I gave the Sox, like I mentioned earlier, I gave them an A. It's a fantastic farm. Brenden will probably be able to launch into it a little bit better than I do. But I mean, just ripping off some of the higher ranked names: Harry Ford, Davison De Los Santos, Colt Cowser, he of the 70 hit tool, Luis Matos, Benny Montgomery, Everson Pereira. These guys are all Jose Salas, whose younger brother just broke the international signing record with the Pods, I believe.
Yeah.
those bloodlines are full of baseball talent.
Yeah, you haven't even mentioned his highest ranked one, Rodriguez, on the Twins there. So.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, Manuel Rodriguez. Yeah, it's just this guy is stacked with Warming Bernabel. He's got some fans in the ABL, I know. Comenarez is super. Like a few of these guys are super young, but
I love Pereira on the Yankees too. He had an injury filled year. I was talking with Adam before last year. We were both hyped, saying he was going to have his breakout year last year. I think he's going to have his breakout year this year.
And that's without getting to the pitching. Bobby Miller, high-end Dodger prospect. Quinn Priester, pretty close to the majors, I would say. Jackson Jobe, a recent high draft pick. Dax Fulton, who has been maybe a little bit underrated so far in the minors. A very uncomfortable, at bat. He's like a big, tall dude. Just interesting Marlins pitcher. Ryan Murphy, half decent Giants prospect. This guy has talent everywhere. Will he go the Mark route with it? Will he try to parlay these guys into big leaguers, or will he sit on these guys for the next couple of years and try to turn all these guys into a powerhouse? I don't know what Harry's playing.
Hey, Alan, we have a Harry sighting in the comments, and he was just letting us know he's waiting till the deadline to drop his players before the auction. So.
Harry, man, what time? It's next week in New Zealand. I mean, this guy. I like seeing him around, though. Hey, Harry. No offense, of course, the F's and D's that we're dropping on your team. Like I said, I don't think it would come as a shock that your hitting and pitching suck right now, but it's a fantastic farm. Brenden, did you have the numbers that you did for the PL?
Oh yeah,
list?
He had the most. He had 19 in the top 500. So two more than the Tigers, but a little less higher end guys. Even though he had, let's see, he had 1, 2, 3, 4. He only had 5 top 100, but then quite a few in 100 to 150 range. So, and again, this could move quite a bit over. This was October update, but this top to bottom stacked. So I said A minus.
Harry went the. Go ahead, man.
I said I gave him an A- just because it was just a notch below the Tigers, but it's up there with the best in the league.
Say Harry did a reverse mark. Harry was a playoff team in year 1, dominated with the pitching, if I recall, and then kind of blew it up, and now has kind of the Mark farm system that he used to parlay into what he has now. They kind of went the other way with each other.
I know. He recently made some interesting moves with his draft picks, consolidating them. Now he's got 1-1 and 1-3, so he's getting 2 of the top 4 big boys in the upcoming draft too.
He's got 3 firsts. Yeah, he's got 3 firsts and then nothing else. So on top of the pretty stacked farm system, he's going to add 3 first-round players. So yeah, we'll see what Harry can do with that in the future.
If Harry's in the comments, where the hell is Mark? I'm getting kind of pissed now. I'm going to have to.
So White Sox potential, I gave him a D. Just this year, it's not looking pretty for the White Sox. I just gave him a D.
I left it a big question mark. I can't even put anything on it. Hopefully he gets some hits in the auction, but clearly he's not playing for this year. I don't even think it's worth talking about his 2023 potential. It's going to be next year and beyond.
Well, the only thing that I thought again was worth talking about was because I think I look at his team as a very different than say someone like Tony's team, where Tony's team is well-rounded already, and not necessarily well-rounded in a good sense, Tony. Sorry, but it's well-rounded in the sense that it is full, and he knows that, right? He's been very vocal about it, but it's full, right? In a sense where he has kind of his guys that are going to be on his team. We have no clue what Harry could do in the auction. He could go in and grab a lot of mid-teens, $20 guys and make his team at least decently serviceable. So just because of that, I put a C for a potential because he still doesn't have anything to work off, as we mentioned. But I feel like he could do at least some work in the auction to either get a decent amount of players or, as I said earlier, get a couple of bigger names, trade them away for some other pieces potentially to fill out his roster even more. So I think he at least has options, which is why I gave him a C.
And Harry is watching the pod 3:30 on a Wednesday afternoon, so he should be probably working right now. I don't know if they work in New Zealand or they just shoot Lord of the Rings movies. I don't know what they do down there, but he is taking his time out in the middle of his day to watch the pod. I appreciate it, Harry. Let's go. Let's do Twins. Let's do Royals last. Let's go Twins. And I'll kick off the Twins hitting. I gave the Twins a B plus. It's obviously not a full lineup, but the pieces that are there are very good pieces. I mean, you're talking about an outfield that features Judge and Mookie, and then who I'm high on for this year personally, Austin Hayes. I quite like. Can play both corners, so a very very sexy outfield, and then a lot of positional eligibility just with the two guys on the infield. But DJ can play first, second, third. You got Tommy Edman playing second short. A few holes, but I think very solid base. More than a base. That's a solid lineup. That's a little bit more than a base. What do you think, Brenden?
So again, with maybe a little bit more inside intel, I don't think all those players are going to be on his roster come auction time. So maybe as it looks today, a B minus. I gave it a C plus, and just because I hate Tyler, but I clearly you'll see as we pull up my team, I went the opposite route with strategy, and he's putting a lot of eggs in a few baskets here. And as we look into his future potential with open spots and cash on hand and dollars per spot, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to fill out this roster as is. But I know we're just talking about it right now. We'll give it a B minus with the potential to slide to a C plus pending drops.
Yeah, I give it a C plus as well. Brenden and I feels like we talk almost daily, so we've talked about pretty much everything now at this point. But yeah, I mean, whether or not I keep everyone on in this current lineup is still kind of up in the air. I think my strategy last year specifically was I ended up buying a good amount of 2022 contracts simply because they were cheaper than trying to buy someone who was the same price but was a 2024 or a first or whatever it might be. So that left me with a lot of holes. Part of the reason why I moved Frankie in the deal for Judge. Part of the reason I moved Jazz in the deal for Judge. I was trying to more so consolidate into a couple of maybe higher dollar players. If I'm being 100% honest, I still don't really know what my strategy completely is going to be because I've never been one to love going into the auction with a ton of money. But
that's what I like to hear, Tyler.
At the same time, I didn't really set myself up for any other strategy right now. Because as you both know, and everyone else knows, I've put Betts up there. I've put DJL up there. I've put Hoskins up there. I even floated Edman at one point just to try and see what I could do in terms of moving some money around, and just either haven't found the right match or no one wants them because they're too expensive for what they're looking for. So it'll just be really interesting to see, I think, from a price perspective. Like, because I'm with you, Alan. I think Mookie at 45 is honestly actually a really good deal for a potential like top 5 player in our league from a scoring perspective. So I don't know that if I let him go to the auction that he's going to go for less than 45, which is why I was kind of surprised no one was at least interested even in trying to acquire him. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I haven't completely decided which way I'm going to go yet, but that's kind of the thought process, at least from hitting perspective.
Hey, you got a potential buy right here for Edman or Judge, man. I've been hitting you up. Send them my way.
Maybe as we edge closer to cut day, Duke put the bulletin board announcement up. Now it's out there and official. Like, definitely when we're doing it, maybe with that in mind, and as we get closer to that, not that like the hot stove hasn't been hot already, but yeah, you just get the feeling that as more guys kind of get on and really look at their teams, and teams like maybe the Rays and guys that haven't been around as much in the offseason, when they actually sit down and take a look and realize what they have to do and the inflation that they're going to get hit with. Yeah, maybe we see some, I don't want to say like desperation, right? Because that's not the right word, but just like a little more agitation maybe from the trade standpoint. We're pretty much, it looks like I was a little bit higher than the two of you guys with your insider info on the Twins hitting. But if it stays together the way it is, that's a big if, I guess. But I was in that BB plus range. The pitching for the Twins, I was a little less generous, even though my love of Sticks McKenzie, I think, is well known. Joey Ryan's real nice. Eric Lauer has shown that he can kind of show up out of nowhere and put together like a near 20-point game. Josiah Gray is interesting. High strikeouts, of course, had the homer problems and everything. I gave the Twins pitching a C+, B-, because I just don't know that the depth is there really. After those first few starters, you're talking about like 12, 13 point per game starters, which is fine. But how good is Eric Lauer going to continue to be? I think Sticks probably takes a step forward. Again, I like Joe Ryan in that, but C+, B-. Tyler, how do you feel about your own pitching?
I gave myself a B. You're making me question myself, folks. I thought my hitting, which again, maybe it's something where, again, Brenden and I have talked so much about it. I feel like I've analyzed my team way more than I normally would. But I personally I like where my pitching is at way more than where I was, at the end of the season, let's say.
Okay.
Being able to add Joe Ryan as a homer kind of guy was obviously a big addition for me. I'm so hopeful that he can be a good just pitcher for the Twins. I would love to be able to have a pitcher that I'm like, wow, I really need to go see this guy in person. So I'm really hopeful he can be that guy, especially at $3, and I get to kind of decide how long to extend him. Sticks, like you, I've been a huge proponent of him for a long time. So I love him. A really random story, not to make this pod necessarily any longer, but it's a funny story about Sticks. I was in I was in an Empire League probably 5-6 years ago, and I traded Chris Bryant at the time, who again 5-6 years ago was one of the better dynasty players. I traded Chris Bryant for Will Myers and Tris Kenzie, and I did that at the time because Bryant was getting just more expensive and that kind of size. I couldn't have him on my team, so I moved for Myers, who was a decent prospect again at the time, and but then obviously Sticks came into play, and I got made fun of so much for that trade because at the time no one knew who Sticks was, and now I get to rub it in everyone's faces. So it's cool. So I like him. Josiah Gray to me is and Lauer are the big question marks though, like you said. I mean, Gray has the pedigree, but he hasn't really shown it. Even Fantrax projecting him to have a 5 ERA. I mean, that to me says enough in terms of what people think about his ability to pitch right now. Like, I've never seen a guy getting drafted in the top 300 that is just projected to have a 5 ERA. It's just crazy. But yeah, I mean, if Lauer and Gray do well, I love having those four as kind of my 4 top guys. And then I love the potential for me to get some middle to lower tier starts in the auction. I do have a good amount of targets. One of them is not the A's pitcher that you referenced earlier.
Ruchinsky?
Yeah. I have some targets I feel like I can maybe get in the auction. So, and then I love again, Homer, but Duran, I think he is the next star of relievers in the league. I absolutely love him now, which is funny because I told Tony like beginning of last year that I hated him. But I absolutely love him now. So I'm excited. I'm hopeful for the potential of this. That's why I went with a B.
I love that you brought up the auction because you do know after ABL4 auction last year, any name I see out there that has you as the leading bid is going up, especially with the amount of cash I have on hand. So those middling starters that you might be targeted there. They might not be so cheap as you might think.
I expect nothing less.
So with Tyler's pitching, Alan, I was spot on with you. I gave it a C+. Sticks is great. Ryan has potential. Lauer, had some good run to him. My favorite thing about his staff is the 2023 next to those two names too. So they'll be gone after this year. But C+, like Duran, I think he's going to solidify the closer role there. But again, not much behind the top 2 or 3 and your closer. So we'll see what you have to do in the auction to fill it out.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of I'm not really rethinking. I think it is I don't want to I don't want like Tyler saying, well, like I thought my pitching was better than yeah.
Well, don't let him do that. Don't let him do that.
It's one of those things where I think it's so cool that everyone has such a different view, right, of certain individuals in the league, of players and everything like that. And I have always been very much of the belief, and this is I'm hoping well known to at least people I've talked to, is that I am very much a believer in I do not need the best players. That is not what I'm about. I think the death by 1,000 paper cuts is 100% real in a 30-team league. Maybe not to win it, but it's 100% real. And so for me to have 4 guys on my team that are pretty much guaranteed start, the whole year and not really, I'm hoping, lose their spot in a rotation going into an auction, that makes me feel really good. I feel like there's not a lot of teams in the league that have 4 legit guys who they're going into the auction with and can feel great about. So I just, that's why I rated them higher, is because I like that.
That doesn't sound like that doesn't sound like a reigning division champ coming out of here. Like, I'm just happy to have 4 starters going into the auction. I don't know.
I lost a lot from that squad.
Mm-hmm.
Lost a lot.
Yeah, you did. Look at you got a lot of spots to fill, man.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Alan. I know we still have to talk about the farm, but just on the potential side. So running some numbers and weighing in a potential drop. Tyler's looking at 14 open spots and $78 cash. So between $5 and $6 a spot for 14 players in this auction. That's gonna be tough.
We do, as we've discussed before and in a previous pod, there are some teams. You guys mentioned the Mets earlier. We know the White Sox are going to have money. The Pods have some money. The Rockies are going to have some money. Off the top of my head, I can't think of the other guys are going to have a lot, but there's at least like a solid the Royals, a solid half dozen of us or so that have some serious cash to play with. Nope. Some of us hoping to compete, the others at least going to do what they can to fill out rosters. So that's a lot of spots for less than $80. That is. But I have faith, like I've said about these other guys, that you've shown us, you and the Tigers really have been the class of the AL Central, at least through the 2 years.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on. Look, man. Look, It's been the Tigers and the Twins. It really, for the 2 years, those have been the only 2 guys that didn't touch the cellar, So there's something to be said for that, I think. As a team that went from a playoff team to a shit pile from year 1 to year 2, and I was trying in year 2, there's something to be said for being a playoff team the first 2 years, I think.
Yeah. I think I agree.
It's a tough division. It is.
Potential, I'd still put the Twins at a B minus B for potential. I'll admit right now, Brenden, I didn't look as deep as you did. I didn't run the numbers and stuff. That is a lot of roster spots to fill and not a lot of money to do it. So I might kind of trend more on the B minus, but kind of like with John and these other, I have faith in Tyler as an owner that he's going to be able to figure his way out of, whatever situation he might be in.
I hope so.
I would never admit that publicly, but I do agree. So I gave him a B minus on potential. Just I think the auction is going to be a challenge. Like you said, he's got some studs. After he trades me Judge, that'll open up some auction money for him. So we'll take it from there. We skipped over the farm though. We want to talk about that.
Oh yeah, we did. And Tony brought up a good point. Did the Tigers make the playoffs last year? I actually don't think they did.
So no.
I might have been talking out of my ass when I said
John sold pretty hard.
Yeah. So the Tigers suck.
Let's talk about the Twins farm real quick. So just crunching the numbers on the PL 500. He's got 11 in the 500, but not too many towards the high end here. Where were they? He's got only 1 in the top 100 in E Strand, your boy, 74. And then, Common Arrows is got a lot of helium at 108. He's probably going to be in the top 100 in the next update. And then some guys that were actually trending down, don't need to call them all out. You know who they are, but some guys that were in the top 100 or close to it that, had some struggles last year. So, there's always the potential for a rebound there, but he had 11 guys in the top 100 and still scored less than me, and I had 9 in the top 500. So
I don't mind the Twins. It was a C plus B minus for me. Sorry, Tyler.
No,
C plus B minus. There's some interesting name guys that kind of like Brenden said, maybe you're trending down, but we're a lot more interesting. Say maybe this time, even last year, like a Joey Estes before he got traded to Oakland. Ian Seymour, a pretty interesting Rays pitcher.
Joey Estes, 441, Ian Seymour, 398.
Yeah, so top 500 guys. Antoine Kelly, I know is interesting, like stuff wise, maybe a little raw. There's some bats, Encarnacion Strand, Cooper Kinney is very young, not going to help you this year. But Jairo Pomerez is a somewhat interesting Giants bat. But yeah, I put C plus B minus. Not a ton to get excited about, but not a lost cause or anything.
Did you want to say your grade, Brenden?
I said C minus. Just looking at the output of the scoring, and again, I'm just using one site because it was quick and easy. But I think it's in that C minus C range.
Yeah, I gave myself a C2. I think for me, my goal with prospects, and I know I've told this to multiple people too, my goal is to never have the best prospect farm, because if I do, that probably means my team sucks. So I never, my goal is to never have a bunch of top 100 guys or whatever. So and again, I've talked about this in a lot of trade talks, in when I ask for like MILB guys or picks or something like that, I don't necessarily put a ton of weight into it unless I feel personally really strongly about a guy for some reason. So like Xavier Curry for Cleveland, for example, he came up last year and didn't pitch very well, but he's a guy I've been super high on for a really long time, just because I've seen from him. Same thing from Brenden did love Jose Ramos about 2 weeks ago, and then he decided he didn't like Jose Ramos anymore. So I really like him as a prospect in general, and I am hopeful that the Dodgers will give him an opportunity. So I'm much more about just guys who are going to get opportunities. Whether or not they're going to be, the next Mike Trout is kind of irrelevant to me. It's, are you going to be able to, in a 30-teamer, to me, it matters are you going to get at bats? Are you going to be on at minimum, strong side of a platoon where I can plug you in, once a week, twice a week, something like that. So I gave myself a C2 simply because of the rankings. Because I'm sure that's where everyone else would probably put it. But I like most of the guys I have, simply because I do think most, if not all of them, are going to get some kind of playing time.
Yeah, just one more fun fact about the Twins. They're the only team in the league that does not have a draft pick in the first or second round in the upcoming draft.
Interesting. Interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, it kind of goes in line with the.
I got 2 in the third, 2 in the fourth, but
not that you don't care about prospects, but like you said, if I have a bunch of first round picks or something, that means something's probably wrong on the other side. So
and I don't know, Alan, if you remember what I did in the initial year 1 first year player draft, but I actually traded, I believe, all of my picks in rounds 1 through 8 for Fab, because I wanted to get in on Fabapalooza, and I had the most money by far going into Fab.
I didn't remember how you got it, but that is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So and again, I understand that it's probably not the best way maybe to go about it, but I never want to not make the playoffs. And to me, having a good farm system,
it sucks.
unless I am doing something actively where I need to reset my team, I don't ever want to miss the playoffs. So I'm more willing to trade first round picks, second round picks, prospects, and take my shots at picking guys up or drafting guys in a third and fourth round versus keeping a first and not getting an MLB guy who's going to contribute for me long term.
Yeah, shout out to anybody watching, or shout out to Cal on listening on Spotify. If it sucks to not make the playoffs. I know Tyler hasn't had to deal with that yet, but it does suck. Neither of you are really Brenden in this league, but it sucks to not make the playoffs. It take it from me, it does suck. Let's take a look at the last but not least, Kansas City Royals. This hitting is interesting to me. I gave it a C+, just because it is a full lineup, and I really like Taylor Ward. I really like Juan Yepez. but and I quite like Ty France. After that, it's questionable, production and at-bat wise, what you're going to get out of a guy like Josh Smith and Nick Allen and even a Jose Siri. I do like Santana as a kind of a stopgap guy. He's on a first, not much of a bench right now. That kind of is also what kept it in the C range for me. Sean Murphy's obviously going to be a top catcher, but it's a decent lineup. None of it's going to blow you away, but it's a full lineup right now. So, Tyler, what do you think of Brenden's hitting?
Yeah, I gave a B-, because I think, like you said, it's a pretty good full lineup. Me personally, there are some guys in the lineup that I don't like, but I know that they are going to get at bats, which makes them very valuable in a 30-teamer. So that doesn't really matter whether I like them or not. The craziest thing to me, though, that we have to talk about is financially where Brenden is at. There are many of these guys. Just because he has a full lineup right now does not mean this is going to be the lineup. So there are a lot of guys in this lineup and his pitching staff who could be replaced. So will be almost certainly will be replaced. Yeah. So I look at this and say the most, or the key ranking for me for Brenden is his potential. But yeah, currently where it sits, I'd love to have those guys on my team, even though I hate some of them. I would love to have every single one of them. Just based, I mean, maybe I hate long contracts. So I know Ty France is cheap and good, so maybe I wouldn't want his contract. But other than that, I would love everyone that he has.
Hey, that's the nicest thing you ever said about me, Tyler. Thank you.
Probably true. I try to put it out there for the public. I just put on the face beforehand and before. Oh no, I made my camera blurry. Look at that.
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of that. Look, I hope 3 or 4 of these guys that are in my lineup right now are going to be in my bench post-auction. Nick Allen, yeah, he's going to play because Oakland sucks and he can play shortstop. Yeah, he's not going to be my starting shortstop after the auction. Josh Smith right now is slated for a strong side platoon in left field. Yepez should get regular at-bats. Jose Siri is a big question mark for me. He played pretty well when he left Houston to go to Tampa Bay, and they are fully committed to him being the starting center fielder. He plays great defense. He's got power speed combo. If he can get some more contact going, I think he has a lot of potential for $3 going on $5 right now on a first. So don't be surprised if he gets a 2 to 3 year contract from me, just in case he hits.
He could.
Rojas is a nice guy. He's got 2 base, 3 base, eligibility. Yeah, look, there's no Aaron Judge in this lineup right now, but let's see what happens post auction.
Yeah, like Tyler says, the potential score with the Royals, that especially when you factor in farm and picks and money. I think the Royals are probably the most interesting team in the division, just like as an overall picture.
And what's interesting is I changed course a couple times, even in the off season too. Like I'm always looking for value, and I flipped Sam Bachman to Duke for Machado when he first advertised him, because I was like, give me him at $41. Let's see how this off season plays out. And even though I think there's going to be a lot of money in the auction thrown around, like I flipped him for a prospect I really like and like a 3rd round pick that I thought was an upgrade over Bachman. So I think right there, that transaction was a win. And just getting rid of Brandon Lowe the other week for literally nothing. I only took him on my team because at one point Sam was trying to get him off his roster and basically gifted me Taylor Ward if I took on his contract. So I was able to get out of that and gain a right fielder who's going to have left field eligibility, within the first week of the season too. So I'm pretty happy with how that shook out.
Taylor Ward, man, you look at his StatCast, and he hits the ball surprisingly hard very often. Like there's a lot of red in his StatCast. He's like what is he already, like 28 or whatever? But he's a late bloomer, man. He wasn't just a flash in the pan. He really does hit the ball hard. He's solid. And then we look at the pitching. And this is where, at least in my opinion, you find like a 1-2 punch of maybe the best dollar for dollar value in the ABL. At least, when you're talking about 2-player combos, in $9 total for Shane McClanahan and George Kirby, who would anchor. That's an anchor to any start of the best rotation in ABL, like possibly. Those two guys for $9, incredible value. I gave the pitching an A- overall, like really on the backs of those two guys, because it's not super dynamite after that. It's a lot of like Trevor Rogers. We've seen what he can be, and then we've seen what he can be on like the good and the bad. Like we saw the great 2 years ago, and we saw the bad kind of last year. Does he settle in somewhere in between? Does he figure out what the issue was? Is he a 13 point per game guy? Is he a 15, 16 point per game guy? He's still going to throw innings. He's still very cheap, young, controllable. Savale, $16. Not great, but 14. If he hits the Trax projection of even 14 points per game, that's a solid starter. And you just traded for Devin Williams, right? Like not long ago. Solid save hold guy. Andres Munoz, solid save hold guy. Jorge Lopez, Russ Resource has as the closer in Minnesota. So there's like 3 guys that you can rely on for 30 plus save holds. AJ Puck, another one. Like this is a very, very good pitching staff potentially.
Yeah, I gave it a B plus for very similar reasons. I think I'm the biggest concerns for me were Rogers and Savali. I don't like either of them in general. The injury issue potentially could be there as well. So I don't love that. And the contracts are okay. I've talked about 2026 contracts before, just in general, again, especially with pitchers. That's Savali at 16, soon to be 18. I didn't necessarily love, but getting Devin Williams, I hated that. Because it's one of those things where, and I'm thankful that he is at least going to be $13. Like that to me, at least, he's not a $3 guy. So like that is at least a good thing. But yeah, just a really, really solid pickup. If there's anything I know about Minnesota, it's that Jorge Lopez will most likely not be a save hold guy, because that's just what they do with their bullpen. It's a different save hold guy every year, which is why I'm so high on Duran, because I'm hopeful that he's going to be the 2023 guy. And maybe they'll have him in more of a setup role. I would have a hard time believing he's their closer for very long, if at all, when they break camp. But it's still a good pitcher, right? So you can't fault him there. So yeah, I gave B plus. Again, very easily could be an A given the amount of money that can be spent in the auction. So yeah, B plus for now, but most likely will be higher than that to start the season.
It's funny. I think I'm the low man here. I gave myself a B. Just looking at the squad, I love the top 2. I flipped Zach Gallen for Trevor Rogers, Jose Siri, and another piece, just because of the contract. And my strategy was I wanted to offload those 30 plus contracts going into the auction, especially the first that you had to give a contract to. I'd rather sign a $40 player in the auction and have a free year than have to commit to a salary on a Zach Gallen at 31 or whatever it was there. I think Rogers is going to rebound. He had 3 quality starts in the end of the year after he came back from injury. He did get shut down again at the very tail end of the year with like a lat strain that was like the lowest grade possible. So hopeful with a full off season, and once they trade Pablo Lopez, he's going to have a solid spot in the rotation. Savali was nothing great. I just want another starter. $18. I think that's going to look pretty good after the auction with the prices that are going to come out of there. And nobody mentioned it, but if you scroll down a little bit, I have a 5th starter for opening day in Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So my whole strategy around my pitching staff was, I don't like 5-year deals either, but if I get them starting at $4, $5, $6, max extend them.
Could be worse.
I'm hopeful by the end of the year, if you just scroll down again, I'm gonna have 5 guys making under $10 with Grayson, Gavin Williams, Trevor Rogers, Kirby, and Shane. So, not to mention, Mark recently pointed out that AJ Puck is competing for a rotation spot this year, which I had no idea. I don't know with this new signing from the Korean League or whatever, it's going to push him out. So, but I'm going to hold
Alan's secret.
Yeah. So I'm going to hold on to AJ Puck because he did show a glimmer of hope last year. So whether he ends up being another a setup man or actually sneaks into that rotation for $5, who knows what he could do too.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Really, it's the Kirby McClanahan combo. I mean, can McClanahan sustain a full year of being as good as he's shown? Is his cap about 180 innings? I mean, even if it is these days, 180 innings is near spectacular from a starter. So if you get 180 innings, 160 innings out of Shane McClanahan, I mean, you're probably talking about a top 10 pitcher. He's a top 5 dynasty starter, easy for me at least. And at that price, at a $5-7 price, I mean, he's probably. I can't think of too many I'd rather have. Maybe George Kirby at his price. So, I mean, it's a pretty spectacular 1-2 punch on that staff. Let's go to the farm. I gave the Royal Farm a B+. There are, on both ends, the bats and the arms, a lot of really sexy names. We just looked at some of the arms. We could start there because Grayson Rodriguez, easily the consensus #1 pitching prospect, will probably, at the very least, have a shot with breaking camp with the O's. Gavin Williams, one of several highly ranked Indian pitchers. You've got DJ Hurst, even one of the more highly ranked Cubs pitchers. Chase Petty, kind of an interesting one of the more recent draft picks. I think it was last year, was supposed to be like a flamethrower, high strikeout, high walk, and he's actually been like a low strikeout, low walk.
Yeah, control guy now.
Since then. Yeah, kind of weird. I'm personally high on Nick Nastrini. He's got really, really nasty stuff, a bit of a control issue, kind of like Emmett Sheehan in that same organization, but really, really good stuff. And even Ethan Hankins, not one of the most highly ranked Cleveland guys, but maybe had a little more helium a year or two ago. But
he was a top pick a few years ago before I think he had Tommy John. So yeah. I'm waiting to see what he can do this year. I'm holding out hope that he can rebound there and show some of that potential that he had.
Yeah, like after Williams and Bibby and who's the other guy I'm not thinking of? He kind of gets forgotten. Hankins, Espino, after Espino, who missed a lot of last year with injury too. But Hankins is kind of like the forgotten man in that Cleveland organization. And then you look at the bats. We kind of talked about Aaron Zavala before we went live. I quite like him, but I did just like recently learned, just like a couple hours ago, I was on the clock in a prospect draft and I looked at him and he had the same procedure that Trevor Story had, the internal brace on the elbow. Still a big time bat prospect, big time power. Supposed to be good to go like in May or so. Colson Montgomery, Miguel, I don't know how you say his last name, Bleis. Yeah, Bleis. I like Casey Schmidt quite a bit. Like this is a very good farm system. Makes you worried about the Royals for the future. He's got a lot of money to spend. He's got a good farm. He's got a good staff. This is, like I said, the most interesting team in the division for me, in no small part because the farm looks so good.
A few draft picks too, Alan.
Yeah, you got your stud draft picks. I know. I was gonna bring it up. I was gonna bring it up on the potential portion. I just wanted to concentrate on the greatness of the farm.
That's exactly what I was gonna do. Is the farm right now is a B for me, just simply because there's those 6 open spots and not knowing who fills that. But knowing the picks that you have, it's gonna be. I don't know why my camera just went fuzzy again.
I think it was because Josh called Bleis the top prospect in baseball. It freaked out the system. Like it's such.
Yeah, it must have been. But yes, it's a B right now for me. And again, a lot of that was from a name recognition side of things, but then also just how I feel like guys. But I am fairly certain that it will be an A after the first-year player draft. So that would not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Man, you're really growing on me, Tyler. We might be friends after this.
I keep it real here. I keep it real.
No, just the facts. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I didn't want to seem too much of a homer and bias. I gave myself like a C+, B- right now, just because of the Prospects Live kind of evaluation. Only 9 of my guys hit the top 500, but I like quite a few of them that didn't. Kind of, I think everyone on their team has guys that maybe aren't the highest ranked in some of these lists, but have some attachment to. But yeah, so I think, a B minus now, but like you said, I'm going to fill it out with the draft too.
I think if you were to look at the PL top 1,000 that they just dropped like within the last week, you would like your farm a lot more right now, because that, like you said earlier, that top 500 is from October. They haven't updated it since. The top 1,000 that they just dropped, your farm is way better than a C plus. I mean, I might have been conservative giving it a B plus. It's better than a C plus for sure. And then if we just go into the potential, your picks, what you're going to do with your picks, your prospects, just like seemingly everybody else in this division. It's a real tough, just kind of like the NL Central. It's a really tough top to bottom division. You guys all know your prospects. Tyler, you hate prospects. Like Tony in year one hated prospects. You are the next Tony. But yeah, Brenden, like what your farm could look like after where you have 3 or 4 first round picks. It's a bit scary. Yeah, I get the Royals potential is almost kind of like the White Sox with the question mark. It's like what is this team going to look like with a ton of auction money to spend and 4 first round picks and some of the best cheap talents in the ABL right now. So I do think it's potentially a playoff team, and I think it's a team that could be set up to be in that Tyler range. I never not want to make the playoffs. That might be the Royals for the foreseeable future. I don't know what is going to become of them, but I have a B plus, A minus potential, and I thought that was pretty good for me to give. But I think the Royals were the most interesting team in the division. There's a lot of different ways this team could look by opening day, and there's a lot of different ways the team could look at the end of the season.
Yeah, I put an A just because of the money potential. I think there's a lot of room. Brenden could screw it up. Don't get me wrong, but the chances, the percentage there are that they're going to be. Yeah, I think what Josh says that the Royals being a top 5 team in the league, I would say that if I had to bet one way or the other, that I would certainly bet towards that versus betting towards them being a middle of the road team. Just simply with how you set up, and I would say that's not just this year, but that's the next couple of years as well, just from a financial perspective. And it's to your point earlier, Alan, about me hating prospects. The interesting part about that to me, I think, is obviously it's not so much that I hate prospects, right? But it hasn't been my focus. Whereas in a 30-team league, I have certainly learned over the first couple of years that I can't just disregard them. I can't just go into every auction and win. I can't just go through every season and trade every young asset that I have to get players, because those people just aren't going to be available all the time. And so then it makes the league super freaking hard too. So I think I'm taking a page maybe out of Brendan's book and out of Mark's book a little bit and stuff, and looking at it as a way to, maybe I don't hate prospects, but I don't love them in a sense. And where okay, I'll try to have some good ones on my team so I can pull from my minors eventually and not just have them be at bats guys, but actually productive guys.
You would love them if you had the Royals prospects.
Correct. 100% correct. Exactly.
So
Brenden, where do you see yourself in 5 years? We'll do you like a job interview.
Well, I mean, hopefully some number 2 number 2 wins here behind Duke. I don't know. Yeah. But I got, just talking about potential, I got 6 spots for the auction. I got $123. So it's roughly $21 ahead to fill 6 spots. So, just looking at my pitching, and maybe I was a little lower in my pitching than you, just because, I love Shane, but I want a co-ace to go with him. So if I can slot another guy up there and push everyone down a slot, I like my staff quite a bit. So I'm, $123 to spend in the auction. I gave myself an A minus. I didn't want to say I gave Mark an A minus. I didn't want to say that I think I have a higher potential than Mark right now, but I think it's going to be a tight division, up and down.
I think it's just looking at it objectively, like the contracts that you do have are very fair, like team friendly, if you want to use like a real life parlance. And then you have a lot of money to spend, not a ton of spots to fill it up with. And then you've got guys in the minors really knocking on the door. We're not talking about guys that have just slipped into the top 100 but are still 19, 20 years old. Not talking about guys that just got drafted out of high school that are, the Drew Jones, Jackson Hollidays. These guys are going to be right there to help you out, and it's probably going to create a good problem that not a lot of teams are going to have to deal with. Like, oh, I just have so much talent and I don't have the space for it. It's maybe it ends up being an actual problem, but I think it'll be one of those good problems that the Royals end up having. And a very interesting team. I really like what you have done with them. I'm glad Joe brought you in. I think I'm glad Joe. I don't have to compete with you directly. If you were in my division, I maybe would be annoyed that Joe brought in somebody that might seem like a ringer and what he's managed to set this team up to be in just like a year and a half. It makes the AL Central look a lot tougher than it did at the beginning. I do think it kind of mirrors that NL Central where it is powerful top to bottom. Even at the very bottom, you have like these teams that you just don't know what they're going to look like from one week to the next. I'm not talking about the Cubs specifically, but he's kind of like Harry in the sense that like from 1 week or so to the next, it's like, oh, okay, so that's the direction he's going. And Frank will tell you, he goes, I want all relievers, I want all starters, I want all bats. He does that all in the span of a year. Yep. But I think the Royals are a really interesting team going forward in the ABL.
I had a funny exchange with Tyler. I had a funny exchange with Tyler on DMs the other day because he just reached out. We were talking about something, and he just out of nowhere was like, he's like, man, you put together a really good team here. Like, you got a full squad and a lot of money. And I was just like, you think I've just been dicking around on Discord for a year or what? Like, how did this happen under the radar? Nobody caught wind of this.
It's not under the radar anymore, man. Josh thinks you're a top 5 team in the league. I mean, the Royals are getting the love.
All right. I like it.
So, final thoughts. You guys got any fun? You want to wrap up? You got anything to say? Either one of you?
I'm ready for that pizza bet, Tyler. Whenever you're ready.
Hey, if it includes both ABL leagues, I'm in.
No.
Try to get we'll get one. We'll get one. Yeah, we'll get one. We'll get one day about something. I'm sure. I haven't obviously yet. I don't think you've had one yet. So it would only be fair for us to have our first pizza bet together. So.
All right. We'll figure it out.
All right, guys. Thank both of you for some solid AL Central talk. And Tyler, man, get some sleep.
Yeah, I need
and Brenden, thank you for being on, man.
We'll talk. Go Giants.
Thanks everybody for watching. Yeah, go Giants.
Unbelievable.